Hi guys, so is this a new front that has been opened up in the so-called culture war, or is it an attempt to force people back into city centres and office blocks because certain individuals are profiting directly from high rents or their donors do? Working from home provides people a certain level of freedom. It saves them money, but it also allows them to spend more time with their family and with their hobbies. However, for employers who don't trust their staff and want to maintain control over them psychologically, it makes sense to force them to come back into the office. Last week we saw how Jacob Rees-Mogg was leaving passive-aggressive messages on people's desks in government departments. Then we have this guy, right-winger and businessman Luke Johnson. My God, what is it with people called Johnson? Who told Nick Ferrari from LBC that salaries for people who work from home should be cut. Have a listen to this.
Let's get into the private sector. Luke Johnson is a businessman, entrepreneur, chairs Gale's Artisan Bakery. The Brighton Peer Group's been chaired as well, the Pizza Express, Channel 4 and many other organisations. Joins me now. Do you see almost, Luke, like a form of almost apartheid here, in that if you're a cleaner or a security guard or the chef or the cook, you've got to go to work. Otherwise, you can just work from home on a laptop. Good morning.
It does feel like a very divisive policy to permit people on the same salaries that they had when they had to spend a great deal of money commuting to work from home. And at least 10 million people went to work face to face throughout the entire pandemic, in everything from, collecting the rubbish to people in hospitals to, as you say, the cleaners and the staff in our bakeries, Gales and the supermarkets and so forth. And then there's this laptop class, as they're called, who can work in their pajamas.
Okay, the laptop class who can work in their pajamas. Some people had to go to work. Some people had to go into a job where they were face-to-face because they could not work from home. Remember at the beginning of the pandemic, Boris Johnson and the Tory government were telling people, work from home if you can. So some people could work from home. And why did they work from home? It was to protect others, to protect members of the public, and to protect their colleagues in the workplace. So some people had to go to work, people who drive trains or people who worked in the NHS, people who collected rubbish, as he points out here. They could not work from home, but others could work from home. And they were obliged to work from home. Now, of course, people like this guy want people to stop working from home, even though Boris Johnson is claiming that the pandemic is over. But this idea that, well, wait a minute, people have got comfortable by working at home. We want to end that. Why does he want to end that? Well, we'll get to that in a moment.
At home. And does that feel fair or right? And also, I think, are they as engaged? Isn't it a bit lonely sitting at home all the time? Does Zoom really have the same impact as face-to-face?
They have different impacts. I wish he actually asked people and did a bit of research into this. So, having a face-to-face meeting and having a Zoom meeting are different. There are positives and there are negatives of both of each of those. So, for example, if you have a face-to-face meeting, you get it's better a better way to engage with people. It's better maybe for networking. You can create better relationships with people. But then for efficiency, a Zoom meeting is better. A video call meeting is better because you jump in, you do the meeting, and then it's finished and you leave. For example, if you have a face-to-face meeting and you have to go to an office room, you have to get there, you have to leave your desk, you have to physically go to that office space. Then you have to perhaps wait outside, wait for the other people to finish their meeting. Then you go inside, you wait for someone to arrive. Somebody arrives, they forgot a report. They have to run back to their desk to get the report. There's a bit of social, conversation before you start. Time is lost. People waste a lot of time in face-to-face meetings. And people will book rooms. You've probably, anyone who is familiar with this will know that rooms are sometimes booked for up to 2 hours just so you have the room so you can have that meeting. It's also very expensive to bring people from different parts of the country or from different countries over for a very important meeting. While if you do it on Zoom, it's absolutely free, pretty much.
I would loathe it, but then I'm probably a creature of habit and I like working in offices or studios or whatever it might be. But to those who say, come on, Luke, I work just as hard and I don't have to spend an hour and a half on a train in from Tonbridge in the morning and an hour and a half back to Tonbridge in the afternoon, how would you respond?
Well, I would say fair enough. And in which case, are you prepared to be paid less because you are saving potentially thousands of pounds a year?
Why would you pay people less? You should actually pay them more. Why am I saying that? Because this actually saves companies money. If you have an office block, you're paying a huge amount of rent for that. If people work from home, then you can downsize or you can eliminate the office space altogether. But it's not just the rent. You also have to pay insurance, maybe. You also have to pay heating in the wintertime. You have to pay air conditioning in the summertime. You have to pay for facilities, security. There are a lot of costs related to running an office space. If you don't have that, then you save a lot of money. So it's not actually expensive. It's saving companies money by having people work from home. They use their own equipment. Sometimes companies will provide them with equipment, but most people probably have a laptop or a PC. It's much cheaper to have people work from home. This guy is saying, well, we should pay people less because because they're not having to spend money on commuting. Why would you do that? Makes no sense.
And is it right that you get the same salary that was granted to you on the basis, and I'm sure was in your contract originally, you had a place of work and you had...
No, most people are not paid a salary based on how far they are away from the workplace. Some people are. Some people, normally salespeople, are paid per mile how much they have to travel. But that's not related to the workplace and their home. That's about traveling in general. Most people are not, okay, this is your salary. Okay, and how far do you live from this office? I live 5 miles. Okay, we're going to give you this amount of money extra to cover your travel expenses. No, it doesn't work like that. This is the salary. You live 10 miles away, you live 100 miles away. That's your problem. If the salary is not enough, then the company may suggest that you relocate to a place closer to the workplace. But very few people are able to negotiate a contract where travel expenses are included. I don't know what planet this guy is living on.
Had to attend it, and now you're working from home. Now, obviously, as the Shadow Minister says, there is always a balance. I don't believe Jacob Rees-Mogg is saying everyone has to work every day, all day in the office.
Yes, he's saying exactly that. This is Jacob Rees-Mogg we're talking about. Jacob Rees-Mogg wants people to work in the office all the time. Jacob Rees-Mogg obviously wants these people to come in. Either it's because he wants to control them, or he wants the managers in each of these departments to control their employees better, or more control over them. Because if you're working from home, you are controlled, of course. There is monitoring of your work, but there isn't a psychological control. For example, bullying. It's very difficult to bully people if they're working from home. It's very easy to bully people in the office. And if your manager is a bully, you working from home creates a barrier between you and them. I'm not saying it eliminates the bullying, but it allows you to disconnect. If you're able to walk away from the computer, it's very difficult to walk away from the office if your manager is a bully.
I think that inevitably hybrid working will become the norm, and it's a question of degree, isn't it?
And who works out that degree? Lastly, Luke.
Well, I think each employee and employer and organisation, but I think that my experience...
Why not introduce it into legislation? Why not have legislation that says workers should be allowed, if possible, to work from home? and have the option to come into the office. You know, some people would prefer to work in the office. Some people prefer the social aspect of it. Some people say, look, I prefer to go in because if I'm at home, there are too many distractions, or it's difficult for me to work. I don't have space, for example. That's fine. But it should always be an option. It should not be the employer saying, you must come to work, otherwise you're not going to have this job.
Experience in dealing with organisations like DVLA over the last 2 years is there has been a collapse in productivity in the public sector.
I'd love to see the evidence of that, because the evidence that I have seen is the opposite, that people are more productive when they work at home. Now, it may sound counterintuitive, but if you're working from home, generally you can focus. As long as there are no distractions, you're able to focus on the work. And many people work more hours if they're working from home. Because if you imagine, in the morning, it takes 2 hours to go to work and 2 hours to get back. That's 4 hours that's lost. Unproductive time. But if you get up at the usual time, have a coffee, have some breakfast, and then begin working immediately, you're going to be more productive. If you're able to have more breaks at will, you're going to be more productive. So for some people, yes, it's not going to be great, but for the most, it seems the evidence suggests that people are more productive if they work from home. Now, why is this guy so adamant about getting people back into the office? Why is he supportive of Jacob Rees-Mogg here? So this is his Wikipedia page. Luke Johnson, businessman. He has his finger in many pies, his stake in many different entities. It says here he has a stake in, for example, restaurants, bars, takeaway places, and he has a stake in an organization called Risk Capital Partners, which is interesting because because it says here under politics, Johnson supported Brexit and backed Vote Leave campaign group in the 2016 United Kingdom European Union membership referendum. Johnson has described the government's response to COVID-19 as a campaign of fear. And in November 2020, Risk Capital Partners funded a media consultant for COVID Recovery Group of anti-lockdown MPs. COVID Recovery Group, of course, being the pandemic version of the ERG. So this guy is a Brexiteer, and he believed the pandemic was a campaign, or the government's response, to the pandemic was a campaign of fear. This guy wants people to get back into the office, back into the city centre, going to restaurants, going to bars, spending money, because, well, probably he has been losing money during the pandemic. And I don't think he really cares about his workers. I don't think he really cares about members of the public. It's all about bums on seats. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.